How crazy is it in New Hampshire? I mean, come on, it's January. I go up there this weekend. There's absolutely no snow whatsoever. But if you have any doubts about the Democrats being energized and motivated to vote in the next presidential election, oh, they're paying attention. By the way, they can vote tomorrow because President Obama's on the ballot. Now, we went to Manchester, New Hampshire, a place called Millie's Tavern. Had a lot of fun. We were there to ask progressives what they thought about these Republican candidates as they faced off in Saturday night's debate.
What happens in America that creates jobs is not government. It has its role, but by and large, it gets in the way of creating jobs.
These guys are all talking about how government doesn't create jobs when they're running for the #1 government job in the country.
I believe in an America that's based upon opportunity and freedom, not President Obama's social welfare state.
The general message is one of contempt and condescension for the American public.
What'd you think tonight?
Oh, well, I think that they're all mostly out of their minds.
I think that the Republicans are a bunch of phonies with the possible exception of Huntsman.
How would you feel if any one of them were president?
Scared to death.
Middle class. There are no classes in America.
I'm thinking, what country do you live in? Because there's definitely classes in this country.
That bothered you?
Yes, but he's so out of touch.
It just kills me to hear the Republican Party supporting these people. They're going to bring this country back 50 years to strip away Roe versus Wade, to strip away any equality rights. Drives me insane.
And Mitt Romney tonight said that he would want to see the Supreme Court strike down Roe v. Wade.
Do I believe Supreme Court should overturn Roe v. Wade? Yes.
I'm of the generation that worked for Roe v. Wade. We can never, ever go back there again.
It is a huge jump from being understanding and considerate and concerned, which we should be, to saying we're therefore going to institute the sacrament of marriage as though it has no basis. The sacrament of marriage was based on a man and woman, has been for 3,000 years.
Newt Gingrich talking about marriage equality is a little like getting lessons on drug addiction from a heroin addict.
What do you think?
It was a torture session.
I would send troops back into Iraq.
The decision to elect a president has got to be much more thoughtful than what we saw tonight. I think President Obama is the winner tonight.
Do you think any of them could be president?
Any of them? I don't think so.
Tomorrow night, President Obama will be on the ballot. He will obviously be the Democratic nominee, but New Hampshire is a very important swing state. So how the president performs in the state in November obviously is very crucial, but Democrats are paying attention, and they are, I would say, very nervous about the Republican field. Let's turn to John Nichols, Washington correspondent of The Nation magazine, who's on the ground in New Hampshire, and also Jennifer Donahue. That's her territory, fellow at the Eisenhower Institute and Gettysburg College, and a Huffington Post contributor. Great to have both of you with us tonight. John, the people I met are a serious bunch of folks who are being energized by this Republican primary. What do you make of it? What are you hearing on the ground?
I'm hearing a lot of the same stuff, Ed. It's fascinating. I followed John Huntsman today, and I asked people from New Hampshire who showed up at his events what they thought about the rest of the field. And I got to tell you, these were largely independents and moderate to liberal Republicans, and they were frankly saying that there were plenty of Republicans at that debate on Saturday and again on Sunday morning that they couldn't vote for. So it isn't just Democrats. It's actually the swing voters that Barack Obama is going to need. These Republicans are scaring even some of their fellow Republicans.
Jennifer, what do you make of the folks in New Hampshire? Would you say that the people that are not in the Republican camp are afraid of this field? And many people say that this is the most radical bunch they've ever seen.
Yeah, I talked to a bunch of undeclared voters today who are undecided, who really don't like this field, people who are deciding last minute, and this is about half of the electorate up here, doesn't know who they want to vote for. I think it's interesting that John just mentioned Huntsman. I think John Huntsman has a movement going. The question is whether he has time for a surge. He's the only serious major candidate who hasn't had a surge yet. I was at a town hall meeting, and I think that John Huntsman basically has the ingredients of a John John McCain, of a Bill Bradley, and he's getting independent voters who are undeclared but are Democrats in their hearts, who are coming out to send a protest vote about this Republican field, much like the people you talked about, and they don't like what their choices are, but they do like John Huntsman.
I mean, one thing that I noticed is that a lot of talk about gay rights over the weekend with these Republican candidates, also abortion. I mean, this is just a total turnoff to independent voters. What do you think, John?
Well, I think it's a real turnoff. And, you know, in a state like New Hampshire saying you want to reinvade Iraq, I mean, that does not go over well. Also, this state just went through a really bitter battle and is, in fact, still going through a bitter battle over a right-to-work law, an anti-labor law. And these candidates were stumbling over themselves trying to be the most anti-labor candidate, seeming to forget that in the New Hampshire legislature, many of the pro-labor votes came from moderate Republicans.
Yeah.
This field is just way out of touch with the state.
Jennifer, what has happened to Rick Santorum? A good showing in Iowa, nothing in New Hampshire, it seems like.
Nothing. He's got nothing. And I think he might come in third. He might come in fourth. Really, right now, it's a race for second between Huntsman and Ron Paul. I think that Santorum probably made a bad strategic decision competing in New Hampshire. He had a pretty good come close to winning in Iowa. He probably should have gotten on a plane to South Carolina like Perry did and tried to capitalize on those gains so he could knock off Romney down there. I don't think the time in this state has paid off for him.
I gotta tell,
but we had a fatal flaw this morning on Romney with the discussion of the pink slips.
Yeah. Well, that a story like that just goes through the countryside like wildfire, and it's something, it's water cooler talk. People talk about that. John, has that hurt him?
Oh, it has hurt a lot. In fact, that's the funny thing. I, being a bad pundit, thought initially that it was something people would, you know, they'd see the context. Wrong. I had it brought up to me at gas stations, in stores. People were watching it again and again. It's on a repeat loop, much like Howard Dean's Scream speech in Iowa in 2004. It's going to hurt Romney.
Well, I got to tell both of you and the audience tonight how I feel. There's nothing wrong with being 2-0. I don't care if you win by 5 points or 10 points.
Right.
If Romney comes out 2-0, it's going to be a real tough road for everybody else unless the social conservatives gather behind one candidate. We'll see if it happens. John Nichols, Jennifer Donahue, thanks so much for joining us tonight.